Good morning or this afternoon, whatever it might be, wherever you are, it is truly a blessed day. I'm glad that you're joining me today. I'm Dr. Barrington Staples, the Reverend Dr. Barrington Staples. And typically, or often, I have my co host with me, my spouse, as I say, my squeeze, my only squeeze, my main squeeze, Reverend Jennifer Staples. She's not able to be here today, but I am here. And I have been just wondering what is going on. I've often talked to you about our program here is race and cultures bridging the divides. You've heard me mention many times that race is a social construct that exists in our country and some people say around the world. I don't think we can go anywhere in this country of ours, the United States of America, and someone is not talking about race. Race, race, race. That's because everybody wants to be put in a category, or people put people in a category of race. And then the result of that is people are acted upon because of how they are identified within that particular racial group. I've often said that, the United States is the only country that really puts all this emphasis on the racial group. And a lot of that comes from the result of slavery. I'm not going to get it twisted here because in this country, no matter how we shape it, most things are based upon what happens to black folk and what happens to white folk. And from that, we develop certain behaviors, certain attitudes, and we put black and white folks in this situation. That's not to exclude other people. Brown folks, no, and I'm going to just go through the color process. Um, Brown folks, red folks, yellow folks, in other words, people that are considered indigenous. I hate that term because they were here already. I'm talking about people in my family, my mother's side, uh, they were here already. So, I always get a kick out of how they say how America was discovered. Well, how can you discover something that's already been discovered by other people here already? And I've talked in the previous episodes regarding the results of that in terms of extermination, displacement, so on and so forth. So the gist of what has happened from the result of categorizing people into these groups, we have a strange situation. And I'm going to stick with talking about the culture of the WNBA. As we go through and we visit one another from time to time from this podcast, um, must understand that culture is anything where there's interactions. Sometimes it's humans. There's even cultures within animal kingdom. Chimpanzees, gorillas, lions, you name it, porpoises, whales, dolphins, everything has a culture. And we will delineate between race and cultures as we move through different areas within the concepts of what culture we're dealing with. But I'm very curious about what's going on. Today's episode is entitled Caitlin Clark and Jordan Rules and Civil Rights. But before I go any further in that, I want us to understand that I talked before regarding the racial situations that are going on within the WNBA. There's racial groups in everything you do in sports, golf. We have um, football. We have basketball, so on and so forth. Everybody's making a big deal out of Caitlin Clark, down Paige Beckers, and then other players. Mostly the Indiana Fever is the team that people are focused on. A lot of that's because of Caitlin or CC. But I want to delve back into the concept of what is happening here. And I want to try to be very clear regarding the confusion on racism and prejudice. Everyone uses the word racism continually, continually, continually. And I shout out to everyone. A lot of people are called racist. They are racist. They have some issues, but to be a true racist, like there are true racists out there. Nazi Germany, we saw that with Hitler and the Third Reich and his stormtroopers. We're seeing that right now. There's some true racist issues going on right now in this country when we're talking about deportations and we have people that are being shot and killed that are unarmed. To me, that is definitely racial. That is racial. Prejudice, however, is based upon attitudes. And when we go back to racism, people actually believe that they throw God into this, that God has given them the right to act this way toward other people or a group of people or individual because they are superior. Hence, Hitler's Aryan race principle. All people with blonde hair and blue eyes are superior. It's so strange. The people that Hitler were putting in gas chambers and concentration camps, they looked like him. Hitler did not have blonde hair and blue eyes. You know, we all have this Stockholm syndrome sometimes. But I want to just delve into some academic aspects so we can better understand what's happening with the NBA, Caitlin Clark, and all this stuff. And we talked a little bit about this civil rights issue that's been talked about. But before we go further with that, let me try to delve into something here. But I want to just share with you a statistic here. I'll pull it back up. The NBA is a league with diverse racial makeup, predominantly featuring Black and African American, Black and I don't use the term African American. I say if there many for. Approximately 64 to 70% of the WNBA players identify as Black, and 90% identify as white. Then there's 1.5% of the players identify as Asian, and nearly 11% identified as mixed race. Now, let me be clear about that mixed race part. Some people will be of mixed race, but they won't identify it. And I'll just put it like this. Some people that have a Black parent and a white parent, in a lot of cases, they will just say they're Black. You know, President Barack Obama is always called the first Black president. Well, he had a mama who was from Kansas, like Dorothy and Toto and Annie Mae in Kansas, from Irish descent. His mother is somewhat being ignored out of that equation. His father was from Kenya, an economist, died in a horrific car accident. But we only apply that, and then if you want to delve in deeper, his father was not an American, he was African, as I said, from Kenya. So if we look at it, semantically, President Barack Obama was truly African and American. He could take that title, African American, and it applies to him appropriately and adequately. So what happens to people when they are put into categories, sometimes we put people into this particular realm. I'm going to pull this up here and just let us kind of think about this. So this is from Merton's typology, patterns of prejudice and racism. Racism, as I said, is having that thought in your mind that God has given you this right to hate people. But prejudice is something that a lot of people have, and they're not racist. So at some other time, I'll go into another dynamic of racism more specifically and more in depth. But prejudice is this. Let's look at this. You can be a timid bigot. So what is a timid bigot? Good question. I'm glad you asked. A person that's prejudiced and they do not discriminate. A timid bigot. I don't know about that person or this person, but I'm going to still like them. I'm going to do things with them. Timid bigot. A timid bigot. Let's move down below that. An active bigot. That person is prejudiced and they discriminate. I tell you what, no, I'm not going to like you. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to let you come into my house. I'm going to try to keep all of y'all out of my neighborhood. That's an active bigot. Does that mean they're racist? No. That means that they're prejudiced. Are they saying that God is telling them to do that? So typically, you have to understand is dealing with fear. So an active bigot, even an active bigot, by giving information and talking to them and doing things, you may be able to change the tide of all that behavior. Then we have an all-weather liberal. That person's non-prejudiced, does not even discriminate. I mean, they love everybody. Okay. Then we have the fair weather liberal. Not prejudiced person, but they do discriminate. They're kind of confused. So I wanted to just share with you that whole process of that situation of prejudice and discrimination and what's happening in the WNBA to Caitlin Clark and this whole thing about civil rights. And let me just share with you. I mentioned earlier about identification. Some people identify as being Black. Some people have a certain skin tone that's dark. Some people apply that to being Black. For example, a lot of people that are Puerto Rican, and I lived on the north side of Chicago and in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, and everybody just had a lot of soul. There's a comedian. This is all in jest here. Just think about this. She's a comedian, Irene Hicks. She's from Spanish Harlem. And of course, she's part Puerto Rican. Well, she's Puerto Rican. And she said one time in her joke that Puerto Ricans are just Black folks with good hair. And I just said, what? That was one of the classic things I heard her say. You know, the whole thing about hair and all that stuff. So Irene Hicks said that. Now, let me just run down with you about the WNBA players. As I said, some people may have no skin tone, but they may be from somewhere else. And people may, like a Puerto Rican person, some people, depends on skin tone. No, we place people in racial groups, this social construct based upon physical characteristics. So you see someone that's Haitian or Jamaican, they look at them, so look at that Black person. That Jamaican or that Haitian person, no, I'm Haitian, I'm Jamaican. I'm Puerto Rican. Interesting. Let's look at this here real quick. I was very fascinated by this. So here we have a list of WNBA players. Okay, I just want to share this with you. In the green are people that are presently playing in the WNBA. Now you see some from Australia. Chloe Bibby, she's from Australia. Rebecca Allen's from Australia. The ones in the green are people. Then you see some that have in their alphabetical order. Desiree Francis from Antigua and Barbuda. Now, just think about that. Some of these countries I've never been to, but even past players from Australia, okay, and you got to understand that some people from Australia are descendants of an Aboriginal line. And like if you look across here, Annie Burgess, right up here, born in the territory of Papua New Guinea, an external territory of Australia, and she moved there as a child. Then we move on here. Lauren Jackson, she played in the NBA to 2012 from Australia. People that are dark skinned. Let me see, let me go back here. Next, now, this is a neat situation. We have Easy Magbeto, born in New Zealand to Nigeria parents, moved to Australia. Now she's dark skinned. So here we are, she's still playing. She's from Australia, but people look at her and say, well, she's a Black player. Jade Melbourne, still playing. She's also from Australia. We have a lot of Australian connection. Alana Smith, um, Stephanie Talbot. Then we have Michelle Timms, um, Julie Alleman. She's from Belgium, still playing in W. Kyra Linskins, Julie Van. What I'm getting at here is that we want to ascribe racial identification with the WNBA players, and it doesn't fit the script. Then we have Jonquel Jones. Oh, she's black. She's black, and she plays for New York Liberty. But guess what? She's she's born in the Bahamas, grew up in the United States. Then we have another well-known player from South Carolina, one of my favorite schools, with Don Staley, Camila Cardoso. She's from Brazil. When people look at her and they say, well, that's another great player, she's a black girl too. Now, what's really interesting, a lot of these players like Jonquel or Camilla, the thing that happens is you notice that they have this accent. And then from the famous Indiana Fever, we have Damaris Dantas. She's also from Brazil. And people want to say she's black until she starts talking. Then you hear Spanish accent. Then other players throughout the years that come from different countries. Then we have Monique Akoa from the Cameroon. Okay, people that have darker skin, Bridget Carlton from Canada, then Elia Edwards from Canada. So I just want you to understand, Kia Nurse from Canada. Canada and Australia are pretty big. Then we have from China, Li Yuno. So I can never say her name. The Yero, I can never say her name right. But we have here people from Asian country, from China, and it goes on and on. And there's other players that are people of of color. Marianne Baldwin, one of my really good players. She's from France, Bedin. One of my favorite, Gabby Williams. She played on the French national team. When you look at her, she has dark skin. Then we have Dominique Longya from France. She's born in the Cameroon. What I'm getting at here is that we have totally messed this thing up. Then we have Naira Sabali, incredible talent, and a great player. I think she plays for the Mystics. So we have people that don't fit the category that we're applying to a lot of WME players as being black. Okay, they just may have darker skin. I just want to share that with you and just let it know. And then we have Musa from Nigeria. So it goes on and on, different players. So I don't want to go through the whole list. So I want to just share with you that we have an incredible amount of players that are from different areas that are given a category of being a black player. And that's what gets me. We want to break everything down to what's happening, Caitlin Clark, as being racial. The last episode, my wife, we were talking about that, and we were discussing what that all means. And what it meant is that sometimes people are not having it because of the color of her skin, but it has to do more with the other situations that exist with Caitlin in terms of things like who she is as a player, and that type of thing. So people are jealous of that sometimes. So let's move on around here. So here we have a situation also. I mentioned people how they identify. So some people identify with being um, biracial. And here's a few here: Natasha Cloud, Latisha Collier, and Liz Cambridge. Now they identify as being biracial. Some people that are biracial, they just don't say anything. So we don't have a clear statistic for that. I just really want to just jump into that whole issue with that racial component, because I think we're making a lot out of the racial component with Caitlin Clark. I mentioned Paige Beckers a few minutes ago. Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark are both very unique. And I just picked those two because they have grown up with one another. They played on national teams together. Both of them happen to be white and can ball out. Yes, can flat out ball out. But the thing that's really interesting about both of them is they never, ever talk bad about anyone else. Never. Caitlin's gone through all kind of scrutiny, physical, verbally, so on and so forth. Now, I'm just saying, being an athlete also and being out there amongst in the battle, people oftentimes will say things. Caitlin Clark is no angel. She talks a lot of trash, just like Michael Jordan. We'll get into that in a minute. But Michael Jordan talked a lot of trash. Caitlin talked a lot of trash. And they, all of a sudden, these two girls that are white are just ballers. They want to play basketball. They want to play basketball. Now what has happened? What has happened is people have jumped on this bandwagon, and this is where we are. They want to go back here and do this. The NBA and Caitlin Clark, civil rights. We'll talk about civil rights and human rights. So basically, this article came out recently, and it's really interesting how they use this picture here. That the show, I can't remember who that is. I think she plays for the Aces. They're going to show a black female, after having fouled Caitlin Clark, to depict a racist image, a racial image. What if that person was white and Caitlin was on the bottom? I showed you clips before, Maria Mabry and J.C. Sheldon. Was that racial? They're two white females. What do you call that? I call it playing the game. Playing the game. It just so happens that Caitlin is fouled by a black person. She's fouled by J.C. Sheldon. Of course, we saw what happened when Sophie Cunningham got around that, but that's another story. Just think about this logically. People are trying to create a narrative. Caitlin Clark herself has never said anything that she felt that this was racial. She just wants to play ball. Paige Beckers is very interesting. Paige Beckers identifies a lot with the black culture, a lot of it because of her little brother. That's another story. We'll get into that at some other time. Just want to show you this. So here we have this. It was McLean wrote this, and he starts off, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Basically, Caitlin Clark is done for the National Women's Association, WNBA, what Michael Jordan once did for the NBA, made it more valuable, watchable, marketable. Instead of protecting its transformed to the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Ms. Clark, treating his greatest asset if she were a PR headache. That approach could turn into a legal liability for the NBA, planting a seed. And I think it goes deeper than that, what this guy is doing and how it's going to create fodder for someone else that jumps on these kinds of things. Since she joined the league last year, Caitlin has impacted, been seismic. Merchandise soars, viewership jumps 170% with the fever, team value triple, league pass subscriptions climbed 366%, engagement 613%. Her endorsements top 11 million. Kate's already got bank, 11 million. She's the economic engine during the league, yet she routinely faces intentional hits, excessive fouling, uncalled abuse while referees look away. poor referees. I mean, terrible referees. I've seen that. Her teammate, Sophie Cunningham, that I said what fans already know. The star player of the league is not being protected. Ms. Clark herself noted, everybody is physical with me. They get away with things others don't. These 3 injuries have sidelined Caitlin. We know about the groin and the quad. Is it because Ms. Clark is white? Ida Wilson of Los Angeles Lakers, 3-time league most valuable player, thinks so. She has said that race is a huge thing and that it boils my blood when people say it's not because race, because it is. Under civil rights law, race-motivated patterns trigger scrutiny even without explicit discriminatory intent. But think about it, Ms. Wilson. If Caitlin is getting special treatment because she's white, that special treatment is excessive fouls and the lack of getting calls her way when she's getting hurt. How is that? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I think it's down to economics where people are saying that they are jealous because Caitlin Clark has utilized her talent and her skills and people have marketed her the right way. That's what it's all about. Because this doesn't make sense if she has white privilege. Seems like to me she is not getting any kind of privileges on the court. Think about it. So we see the different calls that have been made against her. He goes on and talk about the league has fostered a hostile workplace for Ms. Clark through excessive fouling, so on and so forth. Professional sports, multi-billion dollars, he goes on to that. Her basic rights and safety and public confidence are threatened, and the government has forced changes. He goes on to this thing. Then he goes on and talks about the University of Connecticut. Gene Ariamo says Ms. Clark treatment isn't merely rookie hazing. She's also being targeted. This is the same guy that said that she couldn't make it in the league. She couldn't take the physicality. He set it up. He sent out the dog whistle to embrace the physicality. But yet now he's saying these kind of things. Gino Ariamo. My goodness. So we have here all kinds of things that are going on. And I'm going to just kind of piggyback off of what Stephen Smith says. He feels that what's going on in our nation right now, and I talked about the Epstein situation before, that this could be another distraction that might get thrown our way when the person there in the White House gets, if they take this to a civil rights claim, that could use this as another distraction away from their issues with Epstein. So I just want to share that with you and to focus on this. So what am I talking about? Civil rights. I am a certified consultant with the United States Institute of Diplomacy of Human Rights. I'll say that again. I am a certified consultant with the United States Institute of Diplomacy of Human Rights. And the whole concept of that term human rights was actually coined by Eleanor Roosevelt. And I got involved with the organization because I believe what they stand for, that it is human rights. Now, when we talk about civil rights, that's a different animal. And I'm going to do a comparative process for you. Okay. So they talk about having a civil rights process, but human rights, let me jump down to civil rights. Civil rights is specific to a nation or state, rights granted by a government to its citizens, ensuring equality and protection against discrimination within that jurisdiction. Think about that. Specific to a nation, state. We're talking about a basketball arena. Examples: right to vote, freedom of speech, due process, and equal protection under the law. Has laws been broken for Caitlin? Has her civil rights been violated? Then here's enforcement, enforced through the laws and constitutions of individual countries. So that's in a nutshell. Basically, civil rights is you can't discriminate based upon race, national origin, sex, so on and so forth, religion. That's when people do that, your civil rights are being violated. But this is interesting. Human rights are universal and inalienable rights inherent to all individuals, while civil rights are specific legal rights granted by government to its citizens. Human rights encompass fundamental freedoms like the right to life, liberty, and security of person and protection from torture. Let me say that again. Is Caitlin being tortured? Does she have security when she's on the court that the referee's supposed to give? While civil rights focus on ensuring equal treatment and protection against discrimination within a particular country. A more detailed breakdown. Universal, applicable to all individuals, regardless of nationality, location, or other status. And in WNBA, I've shown you that there's many nationalities, inherent rights that people have simply by virtue of being human. Caitlin is a human being. She has her human rights. She needs to be treated like a human being. And given that through the refs, enforcement, often upheld through international treaties and agreements and by international organizations. Now, you know, basketball is an international sport. So the same laws and principles that govern every basketball game, if you're playing in France or Germany, or Australia, or wherever you are, or the United States, those are international laws that people have. Now, European ball, as they call it, is a little different than whether you play ball in the United States. But let me go down even further. Human rights and civil rights. Human rights are universal and fundamental applied to all humans, whereas civil rights are specific to citizens of its nation or state. Human rights inherent to all humans, and civil rights granted by the government of a specific country. And also, in human rights, protections based on human dignity and freedoms. Caitlin, like anyone going through what she's going through, her dignity is being hampered. She's being attacked. Ensuring an equal treatment and protection against discrimination within a nation. That's under civil rights. So McLean wrote this article dealing with civil rights, trying to take it to a governmental national policy. I don't agree with it. I think her human rights are more in question. So there's an overlap. There's significant overlap between human rights and civil rights. Many civil rights, such as freedom of speech, freedom of speech and the right to a fair trial are also considered fundamental human rights. However, civil rights are more specific and tied to the legal framework of a particular country. So, in essence, human rights are the broader universal principles, while civil rights are the specific legal protections granted to citizens within a nation's borders. And that's according to Barnstable County Human Rights Advisory Commission. So here we have it. Is Caitlin's civil rights being violated? Is this coming on any kind of national thing? So I want to just kind of share with you. No, I'm a person that diehard Chicago fan, Chicago Bulls, and I can remember when Michael Jordan came into the league. He was a monster. He is a monster. So I'm going to share this video with you. I hope it comes through correctly. There was a thing that were called the Jordan rules, and I'm trying to pull that up here. Let's see. I'm going to try to pull that up for us. Okay, give me a few minutes. I'll be right here. I'm pulling it up for us. Okay. This here was called the Jordan Rules. The Jordan Rules were a defensive strategy employed by the Detroit Pistons and also the New York Knicks to contain Michael Jordan during the late 1980s and early 1990s. They want to contain Caitlin Clark, CC. The core principle was to force Jordan left, where he was considered, I think they want to force Caitlin right, but she's kind of overcome that, where he was considered less comfortable, and then double team him or triple team him, sometimes put the whole team on him, hoping to make him pass the ball rather than score. Here's a more detailed breakdown. Force him left. The Pistons defenders were instructed to push Jordan to his left, regardless of whether he was on the wing or the top of the key. Second part, double team him. Put Caitlin's into this scenario. Double team Caitlin. When Caitlin drove left or right, a second defender would quickly rotate to trap him, often coming from the baseline or the top of the key. For Jordan and Caitlin, anticipate the pass, and boy, that girl can throw some passes. The Pistons were willing to concede passes to Jordan's teammates in order to force him to give up the ball and disrupt the Bulls' offense. Another thing, if we do all that stuff, what are we going to do? Wear him down. They want to wear Caitlin down too? The physical nature of the defense, including constant contact and double teams, aim to wear Jordan down over the course of the game. While effective in the short term, leading to Pistons victories in multiple NBA final appearances, the Jordan rules, looking at this, ultimately proved to be a temporary solution because he was great. He is great. Jordan became a more skilled and versatile player, and the Bulls eventually developed a more balanced offense leading to their championship era. I'm saying, watch out, people. Caitlin has intellect. She knows how to play the game. So, the Jordan rules. So, I'm sharing with you today, Caitlin Clark is going through the same thing Michael Jordan endured his second year. Isn't that something? They didn't talk about Michael Jordan's civil rights. He lost some human rights and his dignity, and he was being attacked all the time. But let's kind of look at what this looks like, this Jordan rule stuff in action.
I can compare Michael Jordan to nobody because for him to still maintain that greatness.
Let me go out of here. I want to go back and do this a little differently so you can see it a little better, the Jordan rules. Okay, just give me a minute.
Detroit had Jordan rules just for Michael.
We had to do everything from a physicality standpoint.
Greatness is very. That greatness is very unparalleled.
Detroit had Jordan rules just for Michael.
We had to do everything from a physicality standpoint to stop him.
I don't know how he came out of it alive.
When he was in the air, we had no shot.
You have to stop him before he takes flight,
Because, he's not human.
Michael Jordan foul. Here again, the implementation of the Jordan rule.
Chuck Dingley. So this is a Jordan rule. Every time you go to the fucking basket, put him on the ground.
as soon as he steps in the paint, hit him.
When he comes to the basket, he ain't gonna dunk. We're gonna hit you and you're gonna be on the ground.
Jordan is still down.
We tried to physically hurt Michael.
Jordan had no place to go. Robert.
How bad do you want it? Are you willing to be injured to score a basket?
And the Pistons want to make Jordan pay whenever he gets in the paint.
I can compare Michael Jordan to nobody because for him to survive that and still maintain that greatness is very.
Of what's going on. Caitlin Clark has experienced the same thing that Michael Jordan has gone through. So is this civil rights issue? So let's kind of check this out again. Caitlin Clark here. What has she gone through? What has she gone through? She had her injuries, still played a good game. She's a baller. Her last game. So Caitlin Clark, civil rights versus human rights. Let's think about that. I beg everyone to get off the racial kick. Jealousy, jealousy, jealousy. We got to remember these players all went to school. They've played all their lives with different people in different segments. The black basketball players have known white players their entire life, and vice versa. The European players that come over here, they play with everybody. Let the ladies play the game, but let's show more respect. Let's treat everyone like a human being, accepting their humanity, womanity. Just as we talk about young ladies. So let's embrace the moment that we are living in right now. We are enjoying generational talent in CC, Caitlin Clark, as we did with MJ, Michael Jordan. Let's embrace it. Now, I was alluding to, I'm going to close on a bad note. I was alluding to what could happen from this. Someone may try to use this as a distraction, but don't get fooled. In other words, I'm going to go street with you. Don't fall for the okie doke. Don't fall for the okie doke. And I just want to say that I'm so glad that you joined me today. This is Race and Cultures Bridging the Divides. We are putting out more and more episodes. And to contact me, this is our website, raceandculturesbridgingthedivides.com. So go to that website, learn more about us. And then if you look up in the corner there, there's a QR code. Put your phone on it, whatever you have. You can click on it and you can donate. This is a nonprofit entity and it just help other people. If you go to the website, there's also a donate button on there that you can go to. And I'll be more than happy to send you something to thank you for that. But remember, Caitlin Clark is going through the same thing with the Jordan rules. I'm so glad that you all were here with me today, and I look forward to seeing everybody again real soon. Boy, I've had a lot of fun. I know, as we say in church, I know there was a lot of meat on this bone. Hope you've enjoyed today being with me today, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you. Stay blessed. Stay peaceful, and please enjoy the rest of your day. And look forward to seeing you again. God bless.